Dan as well as 1986's Rodan. Look to the sky. Beware. Because he's coming. See you there.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to week 2 of our Spooktober favorite series over here at Dissect That Film, where every week of October, one of us picks a film to cover as one of our Spooktober favorites. And today we are talking about Dan's pick, 1956's Rodan, or as it was called in the United States, Rodan, the Flying Monster.
Fancy.
I like, is that his belly or was that his back?
His back. This is they stopped doing this after this first film, where they had the gold and the green.
To be honest, I don't even remember seeing that in either versions of the movie.
Yeah, it's you see a few quick shots of the back, but not quite as many.
Yeah, this is so we're talking about Rodan. We're talking about the oldest film covered on this show. Yep. It is now the oldest movie we've ever covered, which is crazy. And also, we need to make this episode the highest downloaded episode of the month, okay? Because Dan always brings the goods to Spooktober, and no one gives a chance. You know, we did Day of the Dead in year 1.
Hey, Day of the Dead was good,
and no one listened to it, and I'm very sad because that movie's awesome, and no one talks about it enough. We talked about it, and no one listened to it. So go back and listen to our Day of the Dead episode. Then last year, he brought us Phantoms, a movie.
Fucking Phantoms, yo.
Yeah. Come on. Just an underrated sci-fi horror movie. Ben Affleck. That cast is stacked. That was an awesome episode.
Yes,
and not a lot of people listen to it. So you need to listen to those episodes. Come on. I know we're covering Trick or Treat. We've just released Freddy vs. Jason last week, which wasn't technically part of our Spooktober series, but come on.
There's a bonus.
Give Dan's movies a chance. But he brought probably the most obscure. I wouldn't say obscure. He probably brought a movie that I feel most people probably don't think about nowadays unless they are diehard kaiju fans like you.
Probably.
I never thought about this movie. I've thought about this character because I've seen him before.
Yeah.
I mean, of course.
Yeah, of course.
They recreated him beautifully, in my opinion, in Godzilla King of the Monsters from 2019. I think he looks phenomenal in that movie.
He is awesome.
This is the origin. This is the beginning. This is the first time you see this character, and it was an experience to behold. So, Dan, why don't you explain to us why you chose Rodan as your pick for Spooktober? Why do you think it qualifies?
Well, this is why I think it qualifies, and further reading after I've made my choice has solidified why I made my choice.
I need to know this too because I couldn't figure it out.
Okay, cool, perfect. Unfortunately, we'll get to that in a minute. Why some of that was lost in the version that you watched with me, but growing up, I remember watching this movie quite a few times with my dad. Any of these kaiju stuff, obviously. But my dad always talk about this quite a bit. It's really the opening of this film, and it was really the first proper horror film that Toho had done. Though they would do other ones that we could always do for future Spooktobers. But yeah, it's mainly the beginning part of this movie, and it is far better represented in the Japanese version than it is the English version. I think a lot of the tone of the English version of this film fucks up the beginning of this movie, even though I still thought it was scary when I was little. But yeah, it's mainly the beginning. It's the build up and everything, and it's usually I'd say about the first third ish of the film. Kind of feels like a really decent like horror film of the time. And you got people like, this isn't scary. This isn't horror. Well, this is the 50s too. They didn't have slashers and people like folding inside out and turning into demons and shit, or
they
shit
just
like
had
that.
Fire demons.
Huh?
They just had fire demons.
They did, but not in a It was different. It was a different time. I wore an onion on my belt, which was the style at the time. But yeah, this is exactly why I built it. My dad had nostalgia for it. I have nostalgia for it. I think this is a great introductory to the character. It was the first standalone kaiju movie Toho did after the original Godzilla, and I think it's the best. Even though I love other iterations of the character, I think this is the best design, my favorite design for Rodan. It has some really memorable shots, effects, and just shit that really stuck with me as a kid, and even now. So,
Angela, I take it your first experience with this movie was because of Dan.
Oh yeah,
was this one that you had seen a long time ago?
We've watched it before.
Well,
I don't know how it's been a while since I've seen it. I do remember parts of it, but it. Ow! I just poked myself with it. The wrist.
So Rodan likes it rough.
Well, it's sharp. It's not supposed to be sharp.
And see, that was a kid's toy from the 90s. They were supposed to murder you, remember?
Yeah, I was gonna say they weren't supposed to be sharp. What are you talking about?
Well, one side's sharp and the other side is not. So that was very odd to get poked.
Maybe
with
some
it.
child from Japan filed down one of the ships, murder his parents or something, or like younger brother with.
It's
an imported toy. I don't know.
Spray that luminol or something.
Maybe I don't want to. Let's keep it a secret for everybody.
No. Yeah. I'm pretty sure we've watched this a few times. It's not just once. We've watched so many kaiju movies that I can't keep up with.
Just bleed together.
With when sometimes I'm like, wait, this happened in a different movie, and I'm like, oh no, I'm just remembering wrong.
That's okay. That's how I do with your whiny CW movies or shows. So that's what it does to me too.
Oh.
Oliver, I know she likes them, except for Gilmore Girls, because that one I know, because I've seen Gilmore Girls.
I'd catch him standing at the door watching.
Yeah, because when we first got together,
if you just want to watch, you can come sit down.
But some of those, she likes them. That's fine. I just poke at her for it a little bit.
All CW.
But they just have that stink to them, right? I just know what they're like. I watch them, oh, it's one of your shows, and it's fine that you like them.
I'm not sure how much I like you right now.
I love you.
We're rude.
So yeah, my first experience, 100% watching this movie, as everyone on the show knows. If you don't know who we are, I'm the host, Brett, and that's Dan and Angela. I didn't even introduce us in the beginning of the episode, so cool. You hopefully you've listened to the show already. You know who we are, but if you haven't, sorry. We usually introduce ourselves at the beginning, but clearly I'm trying to figure out a cool intro for Spooktober episodes, and I'm failing epically. So,
we got the point across.
By year 10, I'm gonna know how to do this podcasting thing, guys. We're only in year 3, so we got a long time before.
Oh yeah,
things will start to roll right. Yeah, first time watching this movie, but as everybody knows, the only reason I've really dove into kaiju movies is because of Dan and Angela. Doing a podcast with two people who are huge fans of the genre, you're going to start to watch them yourself. And also, we do a monster show on Patreon, so that's another reason why I've been watching. I have watched more movies from the 50s in 2023 than I have my entire life. In the 31 years before this year, I have
and
maybe
you just
seen
finally realized what you've been missing.
And we're propagating it, man. If people forget about it, then nobody's gonna watch it.
Exactly. And the funniest thing is we're as I just mentioned, we do a monster show over on Patreon, and most of the movies we've been covering, at least since we've started the show, have been movies from the 50s, which is pretty crazy. And we've covered a movie from the director of Rodan, who is also the director of the original Godzilla in 1954, Ichiro Honda. We've covered one of his movies on the Monster Zone, Varan. And yeah, he is, this guy is the godfather of kaiju movies. He literally introduced Godzilla to the world. He introduced, this character, Rodan. He introduced Mothra. Was he the one who did he introduce Mechagodzilla?
No, it was a different director.
Okay,
but
well, his last
Tanaka was the producer that did a bunch of it, but he did do King Ghidorah, though.
His last movie was Terror of Mechagodzilla. That's why I think it was kind of on my mind back in 1975.
I don't remember. So Ichiro Honda, he didn't direct all the Godzilla movies. It was another guy, Jun Fukuda, maybe, that ended up directing some of them in the 70s and 60s too.
So he did. Sorry to cut you off.
Please.
He did the original Godzilla in 1954. Mm-hmm. He did King Kong versus Godzilla, Mothra versus Godzilla. He also was the one who, I'm guessing, introduced Ghidorah, because he directed Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, in 1964. Mm-hmm. Destroy All Monsters, All Monsters Attack.
Oh God!
He also directed a movie called Frankenstein versus Baragon.
Fucking awesome, dude!
I've seen the cover of that movie, and I'm like, I need to watch this. Where is this? This is on Tubi. I need to watch it.
You need to watch this, but then you need to watch the superior sequel.
Okay. Well,
which is War of the Gargoyles.
Yes, I did see that he directed that. He also did some Ultraman stuff for TV in the 70s. Mm-hmm. He retired in 1975, but he was friends with Akira Kurosawa, who was of course an iconic, legendary director. He brought him back, and he actually worked with him up until like 1992.
Nice.
So he was pretty much like his right-hand man until his death. But yeah, this man is the godfather of kaiju. I mean, the fact that he introduced all these iconic characters that are still so big today, Honda is a legend.
Yes, sir.
So this movie was, of course, directed by Honda. The screenplay was done by Takeshi Kimura and Tekio Murata. The story was done by Ken Kuronuma. It stars Kenji Sahara and Yumi Surakawa. I'm not going to go through the whole cast because there's a lot of characters and a lot of characters that are just kind of there. They talk, they do a couple lines. And so from what I've read, the writer Ken Kuronuma was inspired by a incident that happened in 1948 in Kentucky, where a fighter pilot actually crashed after supposedly pursuing a UFO. And so it kind of influenced him into coming up with, well, instead of it being a UFO, which is what a lot of the characters think Rodan is when he first shows up. Because the thing about Rodan is he kind of just shows up in this movie. It's like, there's no introduction to him. There's no, like, when you watch King of the Monsters, which we covered fucking forever ago in our third ever episode, Rodan is like birthed from a volcano. And so you get this epic introduction to Rodan. Of course, he like destroys this village that's below the volcano. A very epic entrance. I love it. Rodan just shows up in this movie. Like, things happen, and then like it's literally like, oh my God, we're in pursuit of a thing. We don't know what it is. Gotta go. It's like it's flying at supersonic speed, and they're like, whoa.
And it's like this, and then we get like where Rodan came from, like, or
and you get the background of everything there. But
it's kind of neat instead of us just going like, in chronological order.
Yes,
to kind of like double back.
Cool fact that I saw is that for the American version of this movie, George Takei was the first Japanese American actor to do English voiceover for a film. He was like the very first actor to do it, and he does about 75% of the voices in the English dub, which I watched. Dan did as well, but I watched the original Japanese version, which is it's a Criterion.
You should watch it.
It's on the Criterion channel, but I guess it's also on Max right now. It's also 10 minutes longer than the core cut of the movie. So the original cut is an hour and 12 minutes, or maybe that's the American version. Cut it down 10 minutes.
Yeah,
it's this movie. Trying to find like certain information on this movie is just baffling. It's just like you're just like, what is going on? They got different years. It's all over the place. But the Japanese version is an hour and 23 minutes, and the American version is only an hour and 12 minutes. Like I said, the Japanese version is on Max, and then the English dubbed version is on Tubi, it's on Freebie, and they look so much different. They look different. They run differently. Sometimes you feel like you're watching a different movie when you're watching especially the American version. So the Criterion version looked really nice. Like, it was full screen. Yep. It just looked like it was cleaned up very well, of course. And then you watch the English version, on Tubi, and it looks like it was ripped from a VHS from like literally whenever VHSs were, or a laser disc pull. I don't know what it was, but there were parts where there was like dark areas of the movie, and I went, "What am I looking at right now? I can't see anything." But I already had watched the part before, so I know what was going on. But I'm like,
did you have flashbacks to the one movie that you couldn't watch because it was so dark?
The difference is this is a good movie.
Won't argue with this being a better film. That is definitely
yes. I recommend, to be honest, they're both very short movies. They're both very easy movies to get through.
Mm-hmm.
So watch them both. I recommend anyone out there who hasn't seen this movie, or anybody who has maybe only seen one version, watch the other version, because you're going to be you're literally going to sit down and watch a completely different film. It ends the same way. There are, of course, it is the same movie, but they just the English version just completely cuts parts out of it. They literally make it
tonal differences and shit.
Tonal differences. You figure out like the dialogue is different too in certain parts. Like they change names of things. Like cities are named different because they.
Yep.
So like the city that Rodan destroys later in the movie, I think it was Sasebo.
Is what they call it. Yeah.
So there is what they show a shot where it does say Sasebo on it. So that's what you think it is. But it's technically Fukuoka.
Yeah.
I apologize for my horrible pronunciations of all these Japanese names and cities. But in the English dub, they wanted to make sure they didn't want the actors to, fuck up, because of the name of the city. So they didn't want to use that name. So they changed. They just like, oh, we'll just do Sasebo because it's easier for them to say. And so they changed that. They changed the name of the mountain that Rodan lives in, the volcano, technically.
Yeah, you're right. And there's also, I had read that was because there was actually a larger American military base.
Yes.
In Sasebo.
Yes.
So like American people might be more familiar with that name.
I do want to, of course, we got to shout out the man who is inside the Rodan costume or the Rodan suit. Haru, can pronounce his name for me. Help me out here.
Haru Nakajima.
Thank you. He is also the man inside the suit for Godzilla. I think he was Godzilla till when? 1985?
He was Godzilla up to 72.
Okay. And
then a different gentleman took forward place in it, but there was a few roles where he didn't do Godzilla. It was 68. Yeah, not 68. 67, Son of Godzilla, because they needed a taller actor. Though he did do some shots.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
But Harun also did Rodan, like you mentioned. He was one of the Gargantuas. He was Barin. He was Baragon. He was tons of Ultraman kaiju. He is like back in the day, because he did so big with Godzilla. And he wasn't the only guy in the Godzilla suit in the original movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's another guy before him, but he quit. And Haru ended up taking over. But he was like the guy. He's like the de facto guy. Once something big happened, like, go to him. He can do it. He can do suit acting.
I mean, this man is a legend. I mean, this man almost died making this movie.
Yeah.
There is a shot in this movie of him falling into the water, which is a shot they use in the movie, but it was an accident because a line snapped. He falls into the water. They keep the shot, and he almost drowned. Mm-hmm. They had to reattach the wires, and they used the shot of him getting pulled out, but the wires almost snapped again because the suit was so waterlogged. It weighed an extra 100 pounds, and it already weighed 150 pounds, which is just crazy. So yeah, this man, there were times where they were like, you could, we'll stop, we'll chill, we could figure other things out. He's like, nah, let's do this. Like, he was all about it. This man just never quit. He was a legend.
There's a few shots, and I'm sure we'll talk about them when we do the movies. I can't remember what movie it is, but I know there's actually figures of it, of like him where he's like half out of the Godzilla suit. I want to say it's Mothra or King Ghidorah or Invasion of the Astro Monster, somewhere in that three movie run, where he's just sitting there half out of the suit, like just chilling. Like in between shots, just chilling. Like he's fucking, you tell he's hot as shit in that suit. He's got a towel over his shoulder. I do. Well, I've got one of Eiji Tsuburaya.
Yeah, I mean, It's crazy looking at filmmaking back then. It's watching all these movies from the 50s over the course of the last 3-4 months.
Samson got you.
It's one of those things that I have been able to appreciate the art of filmmaking, especially with these kaiju movies. It's just absolutely bonkers. Because now it's all CG. You got to, in fact, even Toho's even turning to CGI when it comes to Godzilla because, it's more of the question like, is the suit work even worth it anymore? Like, are we going to be able to make it? It's probably a lot safer and cheaper if we go the CGI route.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like we've talked about.
But it's not the same. It's not. It'll never be the same. I love the MonsterVerse Godzilla. I love what Godzilla looks like in this upcoming Godzilla. Was it -1?
Yeah, -1.
-1. Yeah, I think it looks fantastic. But yeah, the suit, getting to see like these actors, being physical, doing the suit work. Do I think the Rodan suit looks good? Not particularly, but I'm also looking at it being the late 1950s, and this is a brand new character, and they're trying to figure things out for the first time. This is a flying character. It was like Godzilla came out 2 years before. And you just put a guy in a suit, and he was just walking around. Like this guy had to look like he was flying. Or well, I know the flying shots were all models, but when he had to stand on top of the building and he's like flapping his wings and it's a lot of physicality there, and it's freaking awesome to see. My wife, she doesn't really like engage in the movie the whole way through, but she's sitting next to me watching the movie and like seeing, even the scenes with the little caterpillar things, the dragonfly larvae there. I can't remember what those things were called.
Megan Urine,
yeah. And she's like, "Man, practical effects are awesome." I went, "Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are."
Yeah. I'll have to. Don't tell me now because I want to know at the end. But did she give a verdict as what she saw?
No, she didn't give a verdict. She just was impressed by all the practical effects that she saw and like how cool it was. Like yes, you see wires. Yes, you see things that I think if a movie was made like that nowadays, people would be like, "Oh man, that's horrible." But like we're talking 1956.
I mean, look at Ghidorah, for example. All three of
his heads like bobbing all the time, and his heads like puppets
were puppets.
Yeah, they had to literally. There was literally wires that just like like marionette.
And like you see,
I love it.
In other scenes, you see planes flying past, but you're there on strings.
Yeah,
but it's almost like that.
It's just a really cool experience to get
it's
to witness
relatable,
this.
not relatable because you have been in a suit, but it's relatable because you know that there's a person in there.
Right.
Well, you got to think, and I mentioned this in Ballroom, and I'm going to mention this probably 8 million other episodes. If you look at the stuff that was made in the United States at the same time, and these guys would have a smaller budget or a similar budget to lower tier pictures. I'm not talking about Beasts from 20,000 Fathoms or anything like that had stop motion stuff. I'm talking about anything else. This stuff shits on all that, like production quality with the miniatures, the suits, the effects. Mm-hmm. I'm biased, so somebody like, "Oh, that's fine." If you have a counterpoint, I'm 100%. If you're like American movies look better, all the power to you. But I just love these movies, dude. I think that for the dedication shows at the end product. But yeah, I think just their sheer determination and want to make a great film for a very small budget shows. It's like when you look at like the original Evil Dead. We all know that was a really low budget, but it looks great for what they had.
Right.
And they made what they had work, and that's what all these movies do for me, especially the Toho stuff.
Well, it's like they take the city, the buildings in the city.
Yeah.
They have one shot.
For a lot of that, yeah. The miniatures are fucking wonderful.
And they do it so well.
Yeah, remember, guys, if you're on Patreon, we did do beginning of the end, and that's just grasshoppers on like cardboard cut pictures. So
Bird Eye Gordon, that legend.
Worked.
Guess what, guys?
Worked.
Guess what? If you're a Patreon member at the $5 tier, we're covering another Bird Eye Gordon film for this month.
Fuck, we are, aren't we?
We sure are.
We just name it the Bird Eye Gordon.
Yeah, we have our first ever episode of the Monster Zone was Food of the Gods, which is a Bird Eye Gordon, was one of his later films. And then we covered one of his earlier ones with Beginning of the End. And I can't remember what's the name of the one we're doing for this month. We haven't recorded it yet, but as you hear this, it might be out.
War of the Colossal Beast.
There it is, which I think is just about a big man.
and we're he's a really big
he's a big
man,
man.
SpongeBob, a big man. But dude, I don't know. But we do have another. But ironically, actually, I think last month we did a Harryhausen movie in an.
We did, yeah.
Doing another Harryhausen movie.
The beauties of 50s monster movies, where you have a lot of, in Japan, it was a lot of the kaiju stuff. Not even just Japan, but in a lot of Asian countries, you had kaiju movies, but mostly, originating from in Japan. And then in the United States, you had a lot of monster movies with the stop motion stuff from, Harryhausen and Willis and, from those stop motion legends. And it just, watching, like I stated before, watching all these movies over the course of the last few months, for multiple shows, it has been such an experience. And I have loved even the ones that I don't think are technically good, even the ones like the Bird Eye Gordon ones, Bird Eye Gordon. He tried his hardest, man, and they just weren't for me. Like Food of the Gods is fine, but beginning and the end is a rough one. But it's great to see these early, seeing like the evolution of movies at that time.
Yeah. Well, it's like I mean, it's not like Ed Wood bad, so
no, he was. Yeah. Oh man.
Anyway,
one day we'll cover one of his.
We will. We will.
Cinematography on this was done by Isamu Ashida. Music was done by Akira Ifukube, who also did Godzilla. Also was the man behind his signature roar, which I think is awesome. It was released December 26, 1956. Distributed by Toho, of course. It ran at 82 minutes. Its budget was 200 million yen, which what's the amount on that in American dollars?
2 million. Just
2 million.
Cut off the last two zeros.
Okay.
$2 million.
So $2 million, and it grossed about $1.4 million US, but it was 143 million yen.
So, and I me and Parker were talking about before, is I kind of have, I don't know if that's 100% accurate, if the budget's 100% accurate, or whatever on here, if one of those is for inflation or what, because I know this movie was, at least from my knowledge, was received well in Japan, because it's a popular film in Japan, and it was also received fairly well even here in the United States. So I don't know. It didn't seem like a movie like that's a bomb, but I don't know. I wasn't there.
So. This is an interesting read. So, it grossed an estimated $450,000 to $500,000 during its opening weekend at 79 theaters in New York City. Several theatrical circuits, including RKO, announced that the film broke the box office records for a science fiction film. Mm-hmm. Joe Dante, in 1962, was a writer. Joe Dante, the director of Gremlins. Yeah. He was writing for a magazine called The Famous Monsters, and he included this film as one of his 50 worst horror films.
Fuck you, Joe Dante.
Declaring it another routine Japanese prehistoric monster on the loose melodrama, which was inferior to many U.S. productions.
Okay.
He's full of it.
Wow, okay. In 1962.
Yeah.
Okay, what are you comparing it to? I mean, like, if you would say, like...
Yeah.
Okay.
Crazy.
Okay.
It has a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes for critics and holds with an average rating of 5.9 out of 10. I don't know. We'll talk about our. I feel like we know Dan's thoughts on this movie. He picked the movie. He's a huge kaiju fan. I'm feeling Angela kind of has similar thoughts on it, but we'll hear more about our thoughts at the end of the show. But let's start talking about the plot. So,
please,
as my notes are based off the Japanese version, so it's going to have more stuff, but we will be talking about the differences between the Japanese version and the English dubbed version. So, yeah. So, the movie starts on Mount Aso, which is what the mountain is called in the Japanese version.
Yep.
What is it called in the English version? Is it Moyo or something like that?
I'll look while you're going. I don't remember. I honestly, I was kind of like, oh yeah, this is the English version. I was like, this shit's a little bit different, and I was like, I usually watch the Japanese version, so
You can right click and open it.
Yeah. So the difference between the opening of this movie or this version and the English version is that in this version it starts at the mining city or the mining town where the miners are coming out of the mine. They're having their conversation. They're talking. There's a guy named Goro, and then there's what was the other guy's name?
Oh, fuck.
It was the first guy they find who dies.
Yeah, because I always remember Goro.
Yes, there was Goro who you literally see him for about 0.2 seconds. But he's mentioned a lot in this movie. But
yeah, he is.
They're fighting. These two guys are like getting in fisticuffs. They're like asking, why are you fighting all the time? They also get in a tussle inside
this scene shortened
the building. Yes, it is. Because in the English version, this movie opens up with a voiceover about the hydrogen bombs, about the introduction to the hydrogen bombs. And, of course, it's actually showing actual footage of the first hydrogen bomb testing. And the dub for this was done by where did I see it? Key Luke, who is a famous Chinese voiceover actor, Chinese American actor, who's been was doing it as he was also Mr. Wing in the Gremlins movies. He was the old man who ran the shop in Gremlins.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay.
So pretty cool. But yeah, he's talking about the whole hydrogen bomb thing, and you get to see the explosions and the aftermath, and of course it's like, this is a story about one of those, one of the effects of what these bombs can do, and it just shows an egg, and then it shows the guys coming out of the mine, but then it doesn't really. It kind of like quickly shows a fight, and then it just jumps. It literally bypasses like them going down into the mine, them having this whole thing, and then the whole fact of like something happens down in the mine where they all have to evacuate, but Goro and the other guy he was fighting with don't come back up.
Yeah, because the thing I like is like the whole fight's going on, and in of course the Japanese version is what I'm going to reference more. Is they're like sitting there, they're trying to break up. Like, guys, come on. Y'all work together. You guys got to stop this fighting bullshit. Like, it's just this long occurring thing. He just reaches over to the other dude, grabs his fucking notepad, and rips it out of his pocket, and they start fighting again. It's just so good, dude. It's so fucking good.
I just like in the English version, though, it's just like, you do this again, you're fired. And you too, you do it again, Goro, you're fired. And they're just like, and then they walk away.
It just ends. Like, it took even they tell him to stop, right? But it's just that extra little bit of the other dude being an asshole. And I just fucking love it.
So I guess they're mining black diamonds out of these mines. They mentioned that in the Japanese version. We get to see him go into the mines with the cool little choo-choo train. They get into the little carts, it's like choo-choo, and just down in the mine.
They take it down in the mine. Cool. Like, the atmosphere's cool. Like, I like the inside of the mine shaft.
In the English version, it's narrated by a character, one of the main characters, Shigeru. Yeah, and yeah, he's the one who's like narrating pretty much everything here.
Tell everybody that too.
You find out that the mines have been flooding, and they want to know why. So he's got to go. Yes. So Shigeru has to go down into the mine and figure out why it's flooding. And they end up finding one of the miners who disappeared. Right. Yeah, he's just kind of
it's not there. Goro, it's the dude that
it's the other guy, right? Because you find out, originally, I thought Goro was with the woman that Shigeru like runs into outside the thing, but it's the woman that he was supposed to marry, and it's Goro's sister. I was all lost in translation. Yeah,
Shigeru is with Goro's sister.
Yes.
And but the funny thing about all of this is in the English version, Shigeru narrates this whole beginning over all of this bullshit, almost all this bullshit, and it ruins the setup.
Yeah,
because like the beginning of this movie in the Japanese version, we watched English first and then went back and watched the Japanese one, or I watched the Japanese one.
Watch the Japanese.
Yeah, but it's such the atmosphere is so much better because they're all pissed about it, but they're on the mine cart and you just kind of hear like mine noises and shit in the background just going on. It's all quiet. It's not really music. It's just them the noise of the mine and them kind of conversing with people coming in and out. Like they cut out the scene of the guys going into the mine and the guys coming out of the mine, like, hey, morning, like shift change,
Yeah.
like to kind of set up, what's going on here. It's not just guys walk into a mine. Like it's trying to set up something here. And it's all fucked with the narration, I think.
So yeah, they get out, they find out the guy's dead. You get the whole situation like where the wife shows up wanting to see him. This is a tough scene because what makes it worse is when the baby starts crying and it doesn't stop crying, and you're like, God damn.
Yep.
In the English version,
trying to stop her.
It's like, fuck this. Like literally, they're just like, it was Goro. Why do you think that was Goro? You want to have a bet? Like type thing. And I was like, okay, that just killed the entire mood of that entire scene by just them having this really quick. And it's usually just, I mean, this is 50s, voiceover work. So it's very clunky and just kind of doesn't fit. I know that like George Takei did like 7 voices in this movie. So like sometimes it just didn't sound right. And that's why you need to hear it in its natural language,
Yeah, and when they show the guy's body they're working on, because they show him like bring the body up and clean it, which is a cool touch. Most movies wouldn't probably do this. They just have it covered up. Even at
the English version they didn't show it. It was the Japanese version they could.
Yeah, and they even say because the big difference in the English version, like, oh, he's been mutilated by like tore up or whatever, and then the Japanese version, like the doctor's like, no, it was just like a weird like blow to his head, but it wasn't normal.
Didn't he say he got sliced? It was kind of like a samurai. It was like the cut was like a samurai sword.
Okay, he probably did because I remember he mentioned a head wound too, but it didn't talk about him being mutilated or anything like. Because when you see the body, it doesn't look.
No.
I mean, he's obviously dead, but he doesn't look like completely fucked like they try to describe it in the U.S. version.
You kind of get you get this similar scene in Jaws, almost 20 years later, where they get the whole, this wasn't an accident. He was attacked type thing.
This was no boat propeller.
No offense to American voiceovers that they do English, voiceovers. The Japanese just have a way of conveying emotion.
Oh yeah,
certain things.
No, I agree.
Like Iori
from King of Fighters.
If you have ever listened to his laugh, he sounds like a crazy man.
Yeah.
That has just gone through an episode.
Yeah, and I don't think even.
But then you get the English version. It just doesn't convey that same.
It's not the same.
No.
Emotion behind it.
I've seen a lot of dub stuff. Like, and there's some good. No, don't get me wrong. There's some good English voice actors that do really good dubbing.
There's
also a lot of them that don't do very good work.
But it's like they can't convey that emotion because they're not. They're just voicing to a screen. They're not like with somebody like face to face.
Yeah, there's sometimes where, like, me and Dan just talked about the Gamera series on Netflix, and I watched the English dub of the show because it was just easier for me to do that. Maybe one day I'll go back and watch it in the Japanese. But there were some characters that sounded perfect. Like the English dub was like perfectly aligned with that character. It felt like that character. Then there was some that just weren't.
I agree, but it's and like the thing you just mentioned though about how they're like talking about taking bets that it was Goro, and in the English version, like Shigeru comes up, he's like, guys, you can't talk about this. We don't want to scare the other miners or stop because it's a small mining community.
Right.
Like the mine community, they base their lives on this mine. Mm-hmm. That's it. Like this is a small place. So you start spreading rumors, you can cause problems. And in the English one, they're like, hey, you just don't want you saying shit because you're hitched up with his sister. And in the Japanese one, they're just like, yeah, it's probably the guy's like, it's probably Goro. It's like, yeah, but just don't say nothing. They're like, all right,
we don't
like,
really
there's not that subtext.
Yeah,
and there's not that subtext. Like, yeah, you're just saying that because it's his sister. I'm like, no, why? Like,
why would I say that?
Yeah, I don't know. He's just trying to cover for him or some shit, which is like a weird context that's not there in the Japanese one. They're trying to add to the English one was just odd. They do it again later too.
So yeah, they call the police. The police come in, then they got to go back down into the mine, and then everybody gets killed. You get the one miner. The one miner gets killed. then the cop gets pulled on. They pretty much get pulled under the water, and then the one guy. This is a pretty scary moment where the third guy's like trying to call on the phone, and then you just see a shadow of a creature like attack him, and I love the scream like slide down the wall technique that a lot of actors do when they're getting attacked by something off screen.
Love the because the first guy gets pulled under because they're joking about it. They're saying he's like, keep going. He's like, don't be such a fucking coward. Like,
which they don't say in the.
No,
they just keep the guy in front just keeps telling the guy in the back to shut up. Pretty much, he's like,
and
just stop talking.
In the English one, he's like, what's that noise? And you don't really hear it.
No, you don't.
In the English version, I was like, where's my fucking squeaky toy? Like you hear it like right away in that. That's why I was joking about since last week, guys.
This is one thing about these monster movies, at least the ones that I've seen lately, that drive me crazy. And I know I probably, when it comes to the kaiju community, they're probably going to be screaming at me like, you're just a bitch. The fucking noise, like, I appreciate the noises these monsters make, but there are moments where it goes on for so long that I'm like, can we just move on? Or just can the monster just stop making noise? Because my brain hurts. I'm getting a headache right now. Like the sound that this thing makes.
Parker just doesn't like animal noises.
Oh, it was fine for a little bit, but there is the scene where, cutting through, the guys are dead. They come back. They find all the people dead. They have to go investigate.
Like it can't be Goro.
Yeah, it can't be Goro.
Everything against these guys.
Right.
Like they didn't really.
So, this is when you get like the graphic detail of like how each of these guys were killed. There was one like in the Japanese version, which was not in the English version, and we're gonna keep saying that. Everybody's like, "Oh my god, stop!" It's like, no, we have to tell you the difference. In the Japanese version, they literally say one of the men had their head dangling by a strip of skin. Like his head was only attached by a strip of skin. I went, oh.
Yeah, because you only see him bring the two bodies in that are intact,
Yeah.
like not the other.
Well,
one.
I mean, also, at this time, you don't have the unless you did like a dummy of some sort, which I highly
and that wouldn't do.
We see dummies later.
Yeah, that shit wouldn't fly.
And they're comical.
Oh,
but
it's fucking
you know
wonderful.
what? I understand. So. This is when you get the scene where the wives of the village start going after. What is her name? Kyo.
Kyo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the one wife from that was going after.
Right. That she like goes up to her and like it's pretty much like blaming her because she thinks that Goro is the one who killed her husband. And of course she's just like, I want to move away. I need to get out of here.
At least the other women stop her, though. Like, you can't do that to her. She doesn't have nothing to do with this.
No.
It's not her fault.
And
so I feel bad for her as a character.
Shigeru is just like, no. Well, yeah, maybe you do need to go, but we'll be together again at some point. And then this creature just busts through this mega. How do you say it?
You could say mega neuron. Mega
neuron, or dragonfly larvae, which is not mentioned in the American version. They do not call it a dragonfly larvae.
It's fucking awesome, dude.
It just waddles its way in. Oh, it looks fucking cool. It looks really cool. And this is when you get the sound.
What else practice? Boom! Look at the back door.
This is when you get the sound, though, that just doesn't end. It breaks in. They run out. They're like, monster! There's a monster in here. Everybody runs there. I love when they speed up the film. When people are running just to get the scene to go quicker. It's just like, you just need like some music on my.
At least they don't drag it out. Like,
no.
Let's get to the shit.
So of course they get in there. I just love I love the guy in the front who like drops down to one knee and just like, watch out with his pistol. And just like, pa, pa. And then he gets attacked.
Well, it's not even there. When they walk in, it's not there.
Yeah, they're like, ooh, where to go? And then it just pops back into the door. He's like, oh, don't worry, I was just in the backyard. Just starting a bonfire. Yeah, here, guys.
He steals the one dude's pimp cane. He's got the dude's pimp cane. Well, it's some stick for mining or some private walking. So whatever. He just has it in his little claw. And he's like waving it around.
So yeah, he takes it. And then he just runs up this hill. He goes up the hill, just constantly making this noise. And this is when it just gets to the point where you're just like, oh my God, please stop. Please stop this thing.
He's like, I just came to this house to borrow some sugar, and people started shooting at me. He starts going, what the fuck's going on?
They're shooting at it, completely missing it. There just looks like horrible shots. And I just love the one where the guy.
Yeah, right.
I also love the fact that this creature looks like it's pretty far away, and then immediately it's on top of a guy. Like there's a guy who's just like just
2 guys.
And this is when you get this shot where it grabs a guy, and then I don't think this was on purpose. The thing rolls down the hill with 2 little dummy characters rolling down with him. It's
so good, dude.
Whoever was in that one tripped and fell.
Poor Megan. Somebody's like, "Oh, you dropped it." And it's like, "No, it looks great. Keep the shot."
They did it with multiple shots in this movie. They just was like, "Oh shit, that wasn't supposed to happen. Looks great. Let's keep it."
Yeah,
it's like, okay.
Sometimes you only get 1 shot, dude.
So it disappears. Of course, they're like, "Oh, this has to be the thing that killed all the people." No shit, guy.
Took you that long.
So
something else is coming along.
This was also, yeah. They also get alerted. Oh, it broke back into the mine, and you get a whole scene with like a bunch of like high-end guys like trying to figure out how to stop this thing, and they get the alert like, "Oh, it broke through the barricade. It went back into the mine." This part not in the American version, not in the English version.
No, not at all.
Just completely cut it. It immediately shows them finding the guy on the ground outside the mine.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to like differentiate both versions here.
I know.
So reinforcements are called, and they venture down into the mines. Yes. They got some big old guns.
Yeah, like a light machine gun, dude. Like,
yeah. And Shigeru
I got time to bleed.
Shigeru is there leading them down there. They find Goro, which is just a quick thing. It's like Goro, and then it's like you never hear about it again.
And then they're like, "Oh shit, there's one there!"
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But they did find him.
So they attack it. They shoot at it, and this is when the ceiling drops on it, right?
This is when they drop. When Shigeru's like, "I've seen this once in a movie," and sends the mine car.
That's right, and it hits it, and it just like, wah, and then falls into the water.
And
another one,
toy slowly die.
Yeah.
Like, oh, poor guy.
And then
that's from the hole in the wall.
Yes, and there's another one, and this is when it attacks Shigeru, but it also gets the whole. You see, like the ground is just collapsing. Like you see outside it's just, which is shown earlier in the English version, which
so dumb.
I was very confused. But yeah, it kills this other thing, the mega neuron. I'm not gonna say. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna say that a lot. My apologies to everybody out there.
Well, actually, one thing before that happens is I think this is a nice touch. And I don't think this is in the English version. Is Shigeru climbs into the hole to move the debris to get Goro's body out.
Yes.
They're trying to get his body out.
Yeah, and that's when he gets attacked again.
Yeah, which is a nice touch.
So they go back. They determine that it is a prehistoric dragonfly. Mm-hmm. Like it's the larvae from a prehistoric dragonfly. And they're like, how could it get so big? I don't know what that, like, very confused. An earthquake happens.
Enough, anything will get big.
Yeah. So an earthquake happens, and I love when they call the earthquake.
That's why Rodan has to.
They call the seismic scientists there, the earthquake guys. They're like, "Hey, was that an earthquake?" They're like, "Yeah." So
where was it at?
It's like, where was it?
The crater.
Yep.
He's like, no.
Well, no. In the English version, he does. They said, "Was it in the crater?" And he goes, "Yes." But in the Japanese version, he's like, "No, it was between the crater and the volcano."
Which makes more sense because that's the mine, the crater in the mine.
Oh, the crater in the mine. And I was like, oh, why did they just? They were cutting corners in that English version.
I know,
They've cut 10 minutes is a long time in a movie, guys, and they cut 10 minutes of it. So this is when the Earth, like you see more of the Earth start to disappear. Like you see like more collapsing and everything.
Yeah, and
they. Oh, also, you determine that Shigeru disappears. Like, he's just gone. They think he's dead. They're still trying to find him. Like, they're sending people in there to go find him. And they go to they check out the crater.
Yeah, where the falling in,
which is awesome. It's real life. It's actual landscape shots of wherever they filmed this movie, split with a matte painting, and it's awesome. It's so good. And I love the fact that it's like, okay, you got to stand at this point and pretend like you're looking in a crater, but it's actually just the continuation of the road. I love, though, in the Japanese version, the guys that are in the road, they're waving them down. They're like, in the Japanese version, I think they're like, stop, come here type thing. But in the English version, they're like, stop, turn around. It's like, what? And the guys just come out and they're just like,
up.
Gotta check out this crater. They find Seguro down there. He's crawling around, and he claps, and they find him, and they find out he has amnesia. So in the Japanese version, you get a whole montage of him trying to get his memory back. In the English version, it just cuts all that out.
Yep. It's like, no, we don't need any character development.
It literally shows God damn. Kyo, talk to him, trying to see if he remembers her. And then it just cuts to her showing him the eggs, and then he's like, oh, and he has the flashback.
Yeah. No,
in the Japanese version, he's going through like tests and stuff to try to regain his memory.
They're showing the monster and Megan Ure, and they're showing pictures of that and other things.
And I love how chill they are when they're talking to him in the Japanese one, where they're just like, did you see this one? It was most likely this one. Have you seen it? And in the English one, they're like, have you seen this thing? This is what it is. You need to remember. And I was like, why are we getting so aggressive here?
Calm down. The man had a fucking episode. Like, give him some space.
Oh my God. So he finally has the flashback after he gets like if she shows him the eggs from her bird, and then he has like the whoo, and it goes back to him being
where babies come from.
Yeah. So we're in the cave. We see all the Megan Urine in there. I love the two that like hug each other. They're like, I love you.
Let's embrace.
Yes. And then
let's share valuable protein strands.
Yes, we get a giant egg, and the egg hatches, and this is when Rodan is born. And sorry.
Is where Easter came. Is this where Easter comes from?
Yes. Instead of a rabbit, it's a giant flying reptile.
Just a slight mistranslation in the Bible. It's fine.
Yes. So you find out. So pretty much this is when the Megan Urine just kind of disappeared from this movie, because literally all they're there for is Rodan just eats them. Yeah.
They're tiny.
They're little. I love it. It's so good.
Fucking dog. It's so good.
Oh
dude.
man.
I was had some personal expenses come up, but I was so wanting to buy a figure of the Megan Urines because they're fucking awesome, and I did not get one.
So we get, he witnesses the hatching of Rodan, and does he get amnesia based on the fact that Rodan starts flapping its wings and it like causes some sort of thing, or he was just in shock? And because he literally is like reacting to the hatching, and then he just like totally his face just falls, and he just goes blank and just turns around, just waddles away. And I was like,
I think it was just too much.
Okay.
And he suddenly gets really sweaty.
Yeah.
Fuck. He went to the lemonade stand to ask for grapes and shit. Damn it.
So
you, dear. Thank you.
Welcome.
They get news about an upcoming eruption at Mount Aso. And this is, I'm guessing the eruption is when Rodan comes out and shows up, even though you don't actually see it.
Partially. Well, I think it's when the ground all fell apart, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was all during.
So we are at a airport or Air Force base or some sort of base where there are jets flying around, and one pilot is like, hey, there's an object here flying at supersonic speed, and they're like, supersonic speed? That's impossible. And I just love that Rodan, when it flies, it has the sound of a jet. It's just like
Oh, it's so good, but it's supersonic.
Yeah. And I love the plane. You know, it's like it fly right at me, and then the plane just splits into two. And just he was one of our best pilots. I love how they have the table with the bloody helmet and shit. I'm like, how'd you get all that?
Dude. Like, I'm surprised any of that shit's left, but it looks cool. I'm surprised any of it's left.
It's wild. So they're like,
pieced it together.
Yeah. They're like, what is this? Is this a flying saucer? Is this an unknown weapon? What is this thing? And they also are getting stories that this creature is causing destruction, not just in Japan, but in China and the Philippines. Like, and it is able to hit different spots in like 10 to 15 minute intervals. And so that's when they come to the determination there has to be another one. There has to be two of them.
But did you notice in the American one, like they spread it out? It's like even the Americans in Hawaii are helping find them. It's not in the Japanese one.
The
Japanese
production
one's super localized.
The production company that distributed this movie in the United States were like, no, we need to add. We got to make sure we add United States stuff into the story, you know, to relate to the American people. And it's like, no, we don't.
No, they don't. But that's what they did that with a lot of these movies back then. But it's like when they show the one dude, it's like Colonel whatever, checking fucking Hawaii, finding this, and like in the Japanese version, it's not. It's like Okinawa. It's not Hawaii. It's like they get a little bit of Southeast Asia, but it's like super localized around Japan, China, Southeast Asia that all of this is happening, not fucking Hawaii.
Dude, my favorite part is this part coming up where they're talking about how the volcano might erupt, and it shows these two young lovers going to do a photo shoot inside the crater.
This is safe.
In the English version, it's hilarious because it's like, are you sure it's okay to go? He's like, yeah, it seems fine. And then he just asks the dude who's behind him, he's like, you think it's all right? He's like, yeah, probably. And I just love when they're driving away and you just hear the woman go, see you tomorrow. Nope.
She should have said, I'll be right back. That would have fit.
Oh, that would have been great. Perfect. So they go there. They're not very smart. They're taking pictures. I love in the English version, though. It's just like, are you taking a picture of me or the crater? He's like, I'm trying to get both. But yeah, they're doing a photo shoot in this crater. It is the dumbest decision ever. And then Rodan just shows up, does his supersonic speed, very low to the ground, killing both of them. And then they talk about was it possible double, did they double suicide? And they're like, no, they were too happy. They look too happy. And then they look at like negatives that are like, see, they were happy people. That couldn't have been it.
Yeah.
Well, see,
like, what?
That whole shot's different anyway, because if I remember correctly from watching both in the English one, like Rodan comes down and like swoops in, and then like it cuts to like the camera and like her shoe. But in like the Japanese version, it actually shows them dead on the ground.
Yeah.
Then it shows the camera. Then it shows the shoe. I think it's supposed to imply like Rodan ate them, but in the Japanese version, Rodan didn't. It just fucking murked them.
Yeah, they just flew by. This scene confused me when it came to a scene later on, because it's like, oh, so if he flies low enough to the ground with a supersonic speed, it's going to kill you. I mean, clearly it destroyed a plane. Mm-hmm. It killed people just by flying over them at such high speeds. So when we get to the scene later on, I'm going to be like, I'm going to tell you why I got confused. So they get the negatives back, as I stated, that, proves that it wasn't a double suicide. But they did get a shot of Rodan's wing. And so they based on this picture, they're like, oh, it's some sort of pteranodon. Which Rodan's name was originally Radon. That's his Japanese name, but I guess Radon is in the 50s. It was a soap in the United States, so they said no, you got to change it to Rodan, and so that's why Rodan's name is Rodan and not Radon.
Well, apparently radon is also, of course, a radioactive material or substance.
Yeah, isn't it? Isn't there like radon detectors that you put in like buildings and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, radon is somewhat common in our part of the country, which I did not know that. It's something my boss was talking about, and I was like, I want no part of that.
It is an odorless, invisible radioactive gas.
There you go. And that is a problem, apparently, where we live, or it can be. So
it has a half-life of 3.8 days. So
yeah, I still don't want to deal with it. I don't want like a third arm.
I've heard of it, but I mostly remember radon because there was an episode of The Office where the HR guy puts radon detectors around the office, and the office manager, Michael Scott, hates the HR guy, Toby. And so he just keeps throwing them away.
No, I've always known about the name change. Is like Radon. He's still called that in Japan.
Well, that's his Japanese name. So yeah, of course.
Yeah, so it's like the Street Fighter thing.
Right. Well, it's just like Godzilla.
Well, yeah.
Think about it.
Well, the final boss in Street Fighter isn't in Bison. It's I think he's Vega. Balrog was the masked guy, and M. Bison was the Mike Tyson analogy.
We need to cover the Street Fighter movie with. I
want to watch it
with Raul Julia and Jean-Claude Van Damme. Raul Julia plays M. Bison in that movie. So fucking Gomez Adams from the Addams Family.
He's so good.
God damn. Next year, listen, ladies and gentlemen. 2024, we're gonna be covering some bonkers movies. We don't know what they are yet, but we are gonna be covering some bangers.
Dude, maybe we should just have like a month of just like the shittiest movies we can find. Because
we're gonna be focusing a lot on like older films, I think, next year. But that we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later. So they come to the determination it can't be a Pteranodon. It's too big. They determine so. Another thing that they seem to not be able to match up right is when they talk about the this is a little bit after I'll cover what I missed, but in the Japanese version they determined that Rodan's wingspan is 270 feet. Mm-hmm. In the English version they said 500 feet.
6 inches. 6 inches.
8 inches, right, babe?
Oh I'm like, that is a vastly different size.
Just
like 270 and 500.
Well, they do.
Holy
they did that.
Shit.
If I remember correctly, they did that in the original Godzilla when the Americanized version Godzilla Kingdom was. Well, they say he's 300 feet tall, but he's actually 150 because he's 50 meters.
We don't know length.
Right. Yeah.
So they just want to make it seem bigger than it is.
Men exaggerate that all the time.
Oh, absolutely, and it was a bunch of men that said it. So
there you go.
Oh, I guess I went a little too fast with the whole Segura figuring out or remembering the event, but we already talked about that.
You got it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
You didn't really miss much. I mean, it's cool to watch, but you got the point.
But so they go back to the cavern where he says he saw Rodan, be born from the egg because they were going to try to find the remnants of the egg. Well, they end up finding a piece of the egg, and I just love how it's this like big thing. It's just like, this is it. This is a piece of the shell. And then he's just like, the guy just comes over with a pickaxe. It just reminds me of Yukon Cornelius from Rodan. Yes! He just goes, ding,
peppermint.
Just licks it.
That's right. That's just peppermint slate. Where it comes from.
So, yeah, they determine it's an egg because it's made out of calcium. It's a boy. So, yeah, they talk about the fact that the hydrogen bomb testings are the reason why Rodan and the Megan Urine woke up, because they were kind of in like a hibernation for millions of years. Mm-hmm. And so this is when Rodan emerges. You get to see, of course, he flaps his wings a few times, and then I love it. This is when all the guys, they just drive down with their Jeeps, and they're just like, hey, we're gonna see what happens. And Rodan shows up, and then Rodan flies over them, and they're all fine. Why did it kill the two other people? But it didn't kill these people?
Well, so yes, but this is a scene. This is one of the other. Okay, so I got 3 scenes that I love in this movie. And I'll get to the last one when we get to it. But the first one was the dudes getting pulled into the water, like we talked about in the beginning. This is the next one where, like you said, it flies over them. And I don't know if it was as low as it was for them. I don't know how his wind shit works, if it's just plot armor or whatever. But the one Jeep that fucking drives away and the wind hits it and slams into a fucking rock.
That's
I was like,
so
damn.
Good. But then I was like, why do those guys not die? They're just lying on the ground
right.
like,
Quick, deploy the plot armor.
We can't kill these guys yet. So this is when we get a dogfight with Rodan, and Rodan makes quick work of a couple of them. And this is when you get the shot of Rodan falling into the water, and this is the shot we talked about way earlier in the episode where the line snapped and and he falls into the water. But it looked cool. They also kind of recreate this shot a little bit in King of the Monsters because Rodan does go into the water during the whole pursuit there.
And you get the thing with the jet fighters being remade too. Yeah.
Listen, Rodan is awesome in King of the Monsters.
There was an old release of this, and I wish I had it. There's an old VHS release of Rodan by, I believe, Video Treasures. And they had some promotional art of this shot because obviously it wasn't intended to, but they left it in. They made like promotional art, and I just always remember that.
Because you get the shot of him falling into the water, and then of course the jets are shooting at the water trying to get him, and then he emerges from the water. And this is where this was another shot where literally they had to get this because the line almost snapped because the suit was so waterlogged. He emerges and destroys the bridge that earlier you saw a bunch of people just standing on.
Yep.
And I love the shot because if you look closely, there is one of the people who works on one of the buses is a woman, and she's like, everybody back, back on the buses. She is smiling the entire time. She has the biggest smile on her face. She's like,
buses, yay! Don't mind the.
No one told her that she's supposed to pretend like she could die at any moment.
She missed that part of the line.
Oh, so good.
Everything's fine.
So in this version, in the Japanese version, I should clarify, they shoot Rodan enough where they're like, oh, he's only flying at half speed now because they injured him.
Yeah, allegedly.
Like, okay.
Sure.
And so this is when you get the whole destruction of the city where Rodan, I love it, just flies over the buildings, and then of course it cuts to models just getting fucking destroyed.
Yeah.
And then Rodan is able to perch himself on top of the building, and he's like flapping his wings, destroying all the buildings. They had to put extra reinforcement on the building that he stood on because the suit was so heavy. Yeah, I just love this whole destructive scene of Rodan just going to town on the city, and just kind of by standing on top of a building, just flapping his wings, he is destroying everything. This is when you get the one and only time, I guess, from what I've read, Dan, you could correct me if I'm wrong, that Rodan uses the power breath.
Yes, this is the only time he uses this.
It's like supersonic breath or something like that.
Yes, and the reason I actually scuttled over to my phone, if I could find it.
First stuff.
Yes, I have a very, very old thing that I did. I actually used to, back in the day, if you can find this, I had a video series I did a long time ago.
I'm going to make sure that he tags that under there.
Oh, please. I'm sorry. But anyway, it's a really old one I did, and it was actually talking about this breath weapon that he only used once, because growing up, me and a lot of other people thought it's just his wings. And then you watch it's like, no, he's clearly shooting some kind of wind-based projectile out of his mouth. And we got some Rodans that have used other things like projectiles from their mouth, but not this. And it was an old series I did back in the day called Monster Bites, and they're really short. And I just remember, I think the Rodan was the first one that I did. No, I talked about the version of the book. I also talked about Rodan's. There was the novelization of Rodan. Mm-hmm. But it's been so long, I don't fucking remember. It's like a 3-minute video. I made it 6 years ago. It's on the internet.
All right.
So, silly little thing. It's relevant. But yeah, this is... No, oh God, no. But, no, yeah, you are correct, Parker. This is the only time this has really ever happened. And they never brought it up again. They're like, okay, this is good.
So, yeah.
One and done.
Yeah, one and done. They were just like, it didn't work out. Didn't look good. I don't know. I thought it looked good.
I thought it was great. That was cool.
So, yeah, this is when you find out there's 2 Rodans. Because you see the one getting attacked, and then you see one flying around. And they're like, oh!
Oh, I do like, another thing I mentioned is when Rodan first comes, like, after done flying around and stuff, and when he's on the building, it's when he jumps down off the building and, like, smashes into the top of the other building and the trains and shit. Yep. Fucking love that shot.
It's awesome. I love those close-up destructive shots on these old monster movies. Fantastic. That's why I love the original Godzilla. Just like the whole power line scene in the original Godzilla where he's destroying all the power lines. Oh, so good.
Oh yeah. And he yells
especially
at the
in
birds
that,
in the bird cage,
yeah,
you cocksuckers.
Yeah, especially when it's in black and white, and it just makes it look a little better.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody kind of groups back up, and they're like, Rodan is causing so much destruction, and now there's two. What do we do? And so they make a plan to pretty much bombard the cavern that they're nesting in.
Mm-hmm.
And you got the one guy. Is it Segura who's the one who's like, I don't think this is a good idea, or was this one of the scientists?
It was the geologist, dude. The guy that talked earlier about, hey, where's the epicenter of that earthquake?
Kashawagi.
Yeah, I think so. He's like,
he's the paleontology guy.
No, that's different guy. It's the other dude they call it the actual episode, the seismology guy. And you're like,
okay. I know what you're
He's
talking.
Like, it's between the mines. That guy. He's only in like 2 or 3 shots in the whole movie.
Yeah, but he like disagrees with the whole thing about doing it.
Because they're trying to essentially cause the volcano to erupt.
Yeah.
And he's worried about that running down into the valley and possibly killing people or destroying land.
He's like, it's like we thought about that. We're gonna evacuate everybody. Don't worry. So they evacuate the village, and then Kyo doesn't go. She comes back and is with, she wants to be with Suguru, and so she just they all go to like this one valley where you can see the cavern in the volcano in the distance, and they're just going to bombard it. And this bombarding scene feels like it goes on for about 45 minutes. It's just constant bombardment. It's just explosions, and it goes on forever. And it was one of those things where I could have like gotten up, made some popcorn, did some stretches, coming back, and this bombardment would still been happening.
It's some stretch.
It's very long.
Yes. Longer than it should be.
Yes. So the volcano finally erupts, and I like the effect of the explosion. And then I'm guessing they used something really hot, because you have the scene where both the Rodans pop out of the volcano and they're flying around, and then one just kind of flutters down and falls into the lava and just sets on fire.
Yep.
I was told this was an accident, that one of the cables broke on the model, causing it to crash into whatever material they were using, and it set on fire. And so that's how they got this ending. And because the fact that one of the Rodans died, the other one kind of ended himself because its lover died. And so, because when I watched the Japanese version, when I got done with this, I was very confused why it ended that way. I was like, why, what? It just ends like that. Like they both just fall into lava and just set on fire. Yep. And I mentioned it in a Discord channel I'm in, and someone mentioned, someone told me that was the reason that happened. So it was an accident that the first model fell in, set on fire, and so they kind of came up with the idea they're in love, right? They're, these creatures that were supposed to be, the last of their kind. So the other one kind of just ended themselves to
be with a mate for life kind of thing.
Could have been, yeah. In the Japanese version, it's just all the entire group of people that you've been following throughout the movie are watching this happen. There's really no dialogue. It's just kind of seeing the two Rodans like go up in flames. In the English version, there's a narration from Suguru about why it happened.
Yep. And
that's
what was the reason they give in the English version? I can't remember.
So it was pretty much like it was unwilling to live without its mate, and it just dove in there to,
Makes sense, I guess. I honestly thought it was just, growing up, I just thought it was from the volcano.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, I legit thought it was like the gases and heat from the volcano, and then
I was very confused after watching the initial version, and and then someone explained to me kind of the reasoning behind the whole thing. And to be honest, now that I've been told that and I watched it again with that narration, I think that was the one part of the English version where I was like, okay, I actually like the fact that we kind of get told
that's fair,
kind of why it all happened that way. So
because it seems kind of random at the end, especially like you said.
Yeah, it was like, what is going on here? But yeah, that is Rodan from 1956 or 1957 or 1958, whatever version it tells you when you go to watch it. Originally, it came out in 1956. But yeah,
there is no other Rodan movie. Rodan is in other movies.
Yes, so Rodan would become one of Godzilla's adversaries later on. Of course, we've covered in Buddy. Yeah. Oh yeah, he does in a few. I as we go along, I'll be watching more of the older Godzilla movies. But we did cover a movie with Rodan in it, one of his latest appearance in a movie with Godzilla King of the Monsters back in 2019. And I thoroughly enjoyed that version of him. And I love his design in that movie. I love how destructive he is, how he looks, how he is born from a volcano and he has like the flaming wings. And to be honest, I'm very surprised they didn't give him like fire breath. But I guess they were being kind of faithful to his, original counterpart. So
that was the 90s movie. Yeah. That was the 90s movie. He had a uranium ray.
Yeah. All right. Well, now let's talk about our thoughts on the movie. Dan, you kind of already gave your thoughts. So you have anything you want to add before we jump over to Angela?
I think this is a really good movie, and I think that is any kaiju fan, or anybody that's interested in that, especially if you've watched like King of the Monsters, like where did these monsters come from? You should watch this one. Because the at least I know Parker said watch both of them. I don't disagree, but I think you should watch the Japanese version first, because it is the original vision for the film, and I think atmospherically it's way better than the English one. I think the English one dumbs it down and cuts a bunch of shit out and adds a bunch of shit that doesn't need to be there, except for I do agree with the ending narration, kind of explaining a little bit, because if you're going to like, what the fuck is going on?
Right.
I think the ending is a point of contention for some people, but outside of that, I think the movie's a really good movie. I think it flows well. The effects are fun. The love interest, the love story between Kyo and Shigeru is way turned down in the Japanese version, where in the English one it's like cranked up.
And I'm okay with that. I was I was okay with the fact that we didn't get this, like, I don't need it. I just didn't need it.
You can tell they're into each other, but it's not like jammed down your throat. Like it's in the English when they feel like, I know it was the style at the time where like there's got to be the main character and there's got to be the love interest, and then there's monster shit.
They don't have to go on dates to fancy restaurants.
No, that doesn't need to happen.
After meeting 5 seconds ago.
Yeah, I know. Like I agree, but we have an establishment. Like they've been together for a while, and you don't even find out Goro is her brother until like after the incident, which in the English one
which originally I thought that
immediately.
I just mistranslated that. Like I must have missed the subtitles or something. I thought that Goro was the husband of that woman, and I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh wait, what are they talking about now? Like he's just moving in real quick, like, okay,
that fucker's dead, now she's mine. But no, it's great. It's great. I'm glad the two Rodans was nice, because you wouldn't think there'd be two. You think there'd just be like the titular Rodan. But it's a good time. And then the music's fantastic, because it's here Kira Fukube, and we have evil squeaky toys like I talk about. But go ahead, dear.
Oh, what he said. Sorry. I liked it a lot. I don't have much more to add.
She's off her game today.
I am. I don't
feel
good.
Well, so
I'm here.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here.
This, well, as I stated before, this is my first time, and I went into this with an open mind, as I always do with these older films, especially since we've covered so many over the last few months between the multiple shows that we do. And this movie is, I think if a younger generation looked at this movie, they would probably say it's crap, because the fact is, the effects work and the, oh my God, you can see the wire there and stuff like that. Like things where I think you look at them years later, like if you saw a movie from like the 80s or 90s and you saw wire work or something, I think you judge it more. But back in the 50s, you're like, that's pretty fucking cool, like what they were able to do. The Rodan suit, or some of the Rodan scenes were kind of weird for me. I didn't really like the flying scenes. I thought they looked odd. I do like the close-ups of the Rodan suit itself. with Haru Nakajima inside of it, in the work that he was able to do and the sacrifices he made for that movie and almost dying in that movie. It just looked really good. I also want to shout out all the awesome fucking posters because for some reason, movie posters just don't look this cool anymore.
No.
Like these old, like just hand-drawn movie posters for these monster movies that half the time don't even look remotely like the thing that you see in the movie.
Right? Well, even the English one's really good. Like the drawn, like the one we
Yeah, that's the one I used on X when I was sharing my, for people to share their thoughts because I wanted to make sure people knew what the hell we were watching.
No, yeah, exactly. I do have one more. Once we're all done with all this, I have one more thing to add about it.
Hey, you can translate.
Well, not a poster. You can't.
Yeah, you can.
I do like the Japanese.
Google
posters,
Translate has the real time translate.
There's a translate posters. But yeah, I thought this movie was fun, and to be able to experience both versions of the movie is I think it's the first time I've ever done that for an episode where a movie has multiple versions. Usually, like if we watch a movie that has like a director's cut and a theatrical cut, one of us will watch either or, and then we kind of just discuss. Well, more than one of us actually watch both versions, and I think one of the main reasons is the fact that this is not a very long movie. Both versions being less than an hour and a half, which is awesome. But sometimes the movie doesn't feel like an hour and a half or its runtime. Like it actually feels a little longer. Like I feel like it's very engaging. You don't see Rodan for over halfway through the movie or more. Hey, you can kind of see maybe where Spielberg got inspired for when he had to make Jaws into a movie that you don't see the shark for a long time. And I know that wasn't his original vision, but I think he might have. I know that he has stated he grew up watching these, kaiju movies, and so maybe that was it helped. Movies like maybe Rodan helped him, come up with the idea of okay, we can. Since the shark's not working, we can make an effective movie by not showing the creature. Because you don't see Rodan, like I said, for more than halfway through the movie. You see these, you see the little, what the heck, the mega neurons and stuff like that, and you see like the glimpse. You don't see Rodan, I think, until the egg hatches, right? Where you see the flashback. Yeah. So
and that's another thing I like is kind of like the escalation because you get this real centralized, like I talked about the mines, like you get that claustrophobic, like there's this issue in the mine and everything focuses on the mine. Like you get a few shots like the village outside, but for the most part, it's the fucking mine. Like that's what we worry about. And we got this shit killing people, and then it just goes fucking big scale when Rodan comes out, and it kind of goes away from the horror and ends up just being like a sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah.
If you will,
a lot of, and of course, Hollywood and movies, or just the movie business in general, are full of remakes and stuff like that. But I would love to see Toho actually tackle Rodan again.
I know
in his own movie, and maybe even if they were to take this movie and kind of do the same story, but kind of tweak it, and then of course you'd be able to design Rodan in more of a modern look. And kind of like what Toho's doing Godzilla right now. I think it would be really cool. I mean, like I said, seeing him in King of the Monsters was really cool. I think his design looks awesome there, but of course you can do whatever, I think it would be awesome to see Toho tackle a lot of these kaijus that kind of don't get the love unless you see them in like the legendary films. So,
and even then, like Rodan being, one of the OGs, like the second non-Godzilla kaiju, because we got Anguirus before this, and that dude gets shit on the most, it feels like.
Poor Anguirus.
I know, poor fucking guy. But anyhow, he's choking on that hamburger. But
his jaw ripped.
Well, he was trying to save his life. Anyway,
he's trying to do mouth to mouth, he just ripped it off. Damn it.
Yeah, pretty much. But one thing for me is like I love Toho movies, I love them, but I hate how, especially in the newer ones, it's been like lately they've been just doing Godzilla stuff, but like when another kaiju comes along, it's like it's either Mothra, King Ghidorah, or Mechagodzilla, and that's it. Like it's like I get it; those are your three most popular, but you have a whole backlog of ones you've never done, and you can make new ones. In fact, Megan Urine in this movie ended up becoming the main villain of a Godzilla movie. Megan Urine ended up growing up into Megaguirus, which was the 2000 Godzilla film, 2001, but 2000 Godzilla film, the one right after Godzilla 2000. So they grew up into big ones. But it's like, it's cool when you reuse ideas like that, but they don't do that very often. And I know it's not as much money. Everybody likes the fucking, it's like anything nowadays. Everybody wants the Hallmark shit, the big names. Like it's... But they did. I want to mention this. This is one thing I want to mention before we get out of here. I grew up playing Godzilla Monster of Monsters on the Super Nintendo, or regular Nintendo, I'm sorry. And they were going to make an NES game for Rodan, but they canceled it and ended up making Godzilla 2. So, interesting fact. I actually remember advertisements for it. Coming in 1991, Rodan for the NES, but it never happened. I need to play that. Maybe that's something, I'm going to put you on the spot, Parker. If that's something people want to see, I can do it on Patreon.
There we go.
Play the original Godzilla on the NES. I'd play the shit. I love that fucking game.
Yes, so those are our thoughts on the movie. And so now we're going to go over to social media and pull up all the comments that you guys left us, and we got a couple. Only on X/Twitter. Our first one is from Cinema Medicine Podcast, or at Cinema Medicine on X.
Nice.
That's one of the best early kaiju films. So good. We got one from Dan from Dissect That Film, who just said, "I'm right here. I've been here the whole time." We got one from Charles at Repub9989, who said, "One of the best movies. I am partial to the English dub. I saw this when I was like 6 or 7, so like 1986. I remember renting it from a Pathmark that had a video store in the back with the black boxes they would give you."
Oh, so
very cool.
Like I said,
cool.
I always remember. I never rented it. My uncle owned it, and I just, like I said, I remember the old video treasure VHF.
Our next one is from our buddy Dustin at Flicks and Friend Podcast. I think is just tagging us his cohort Paul, who is a big kaiju fan, big Godzilla fan, and I was hoping he was going to leave a comment, but he didn't. So Paul, come on, man. It's a kaiju movie, man. I'm waiting for you. All right, we'll talk later.
No, I have
That's your shout out, by the way.
I have to go back and watch their.
And our last one is from Joe from Movie Dumpster, who says, "It's great. I thought it was pretty damn scary when I first saw it. All the mind stuff is great, and I love when the Mega Neuron?
Mega Neuron.
Mega Neuron.
That's how you want to translate it. Yeah.
Attack the village at night."
Yeah.
Dude, it's so good.
Thank you so much, Joe, for leaving a comment. Thank you to everybody for leaving a comment on Rodan.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
So now we're at the end of the show. Of course, this is where we do all our plugging and all that fun stuff. We want to thank everybody for, of course, supporting the show. We do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Dissect That Film, where we have a couple tiers where we, I say you get episodes early, but I am so far behind right now. I haven't been able to release episodes early like I usually do, but hey, we appreciate the support nonetheless. And at our $5 tier, we have 2 exclusive shows where we have The Monster Zone, which we've mentioned many times because we talk about movies pretty much like this. Most of the movies that we cover on that show are like the movie we just covered. That show is hosted by our wonderful co-host, Dan and Angela.
Why do you keep pointing at me?
And yeah, it's a lot of fun. And
yes, it is.
We just appreciate everybody who supports us over there on Patreon because you guys help us pay for some things that we use for the show. We got, we put, a little bit of money gets put into the show. And so that the money you guys give us it helps us out, and we appreciate all the support, and we hope what we give back is enough. And make sure you let us know if you'd like to see some things on the Patreon that we're not doing, or if you have any suggestions or future stuff you want us to cover. You can follow us at Dissect That Film on all the social medias, X/Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads. We are now on Blue Sky because I got one of those codes, so we're over there because I needed another social media to keep up with. Listen, if Twitter burns to the ground, at least we have some options.
Burn.
It won't burn to the ground. Just fill it with porn spam bots.
Yeah, they'll never go away.
And lastly, we always want to tell you, please help us out by going to your podcast app of choice and leaving us 5-star reviews, because the more 5-star reviews we get on the show, the more the higher we raise in the list there, and the more ears we go into, and the newer, and we gain new listeners, and it just helps the show out a lot. We feel we do a pretty good job with the show, and we look at the downloads every day, and clearly people like to listen. So if you like to listen to our show, if you like our show, and you haven't left a rating for us on whatever app you use, please do that, because it greatly helps us, and we greatly appreciate all the support that you guys give us. It's free. It doesn't cost you a dime. We don't gain anything other than just trying to get us up there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, on any podcast app that is out there. And of course, go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@dissectthatfilm, where we do the video versions, where you can see our faces, and you can see me waving right now. And just hit that like button, subscribe, it's free, and then leave us a comment on the episode. Tell us what you liked about the episode, or just tell us what you thought about the show. Like, dislike, tell us we suck, and do whatever you got to do.
Please.
But I think that's about it. Do you have anything else you want to add before we get the heck out of here?
No, just excited for the rest of the month, dude.
Yes, because next week,
everybody for doing their thing.
Yes, thank you very much. And next week, we will have some guests. We have the gang from Give Me Back My Horror/Action Movies podcast. I'm very excited. I don't know if the whole gang's going to be here, so I'm just going to say the gang. There's either going to be 3 guys here, extra people, or there's going to be 2, or maybe 1. I don't know, but they're going to be here to talk about the 2003 remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is my pick for Spooktober. So I'm very excited about that. So, stay tuned, because Spooktober isn't over yet. We still got 2 more weeks with some spooky episodes. It's going to be a lot of fun. So next week, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 with Give Me Back My Horror/Action Movies. Yeah, we're ready, baby. Until next time, I am Brett Parker. That is Dan and Angela of DNA Gaming. We are Dissect That Film, and this has been the Dissect That Film Podcast, episode 128. We'll see y'all again next time. Say spooky.